excited for your talk. I obviously been following Nanobot and the work you've been doing pretty closely. So excited to see this thing come to life.
Yeah, let me see if I can still see. Okay, cool. I can even see myself. This is amazing. So yeah, so I'm going to be doing a tiny bit of slides, just kind of and demoing. I like to live demo, or you could say I'm just really bad at time management and preparing things. So
are you going to go full screen with that? It's a little bit.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to slideshow. There we go.
All right, let's get started.
Okay, so these are my very well constructed slides. Okay, so basically this is like, okay, so what I'm presenting today is Nanobot. And I want to get, before I get into the weeds, it's like, why did I build Nanobot? What was I trying to do? So basically the thing is, like, once I discovered MCP and really started to digging into it and the primitives that were in there, is I kind of just got obsessed with this idea of like, I really think like MCP is kind of all you really need. And so I think MCP is an amazing primitive where it's like, if we take MCP, like, that could be the fundamental, with obviously the exception of the AI model, but it's kind of like you have an AI model plus MCP servers, like what else do I possibly need? So I kind of been obsessed with that idea, and everything that I've been doing for the last couple of months or so is pushing forward on this idea. It's like, does this make sense? Is, do we need something else? Like, what does this really mean? And so, so the idea is like, I want like MCP is like, that's the answer for everything, but that's not really the answer. It's like, it's kind of like saying like, you need JavaScript. Like JavaScript is all you need for the web. It's like, well, you kind of need all this other stuff around it. But the point is like, well, all you have to do is write JavaScript, but obviously you need all this plumbing and stuff, like browser and stuff like that. And then you can create websites and everything. So it's kind of like that. Like what's missing? If I say like, the main component of things I'm going to develop and integrate and whatnot is MCP, like what else is kind of missing for me to build like full, MCP, basically agents. And so this is basically what I've been focused on, is I'm just kind of obsessed with MCP agents. Like, what does that actually mean? Can I use MCP to build agents? None of this stuff is well defined. Like, what is an agent? What is an MCP agent? Any of this. So Nanobot really is born out of me trying to just kind of test out ideas and push things forward. Okay, so basically the system that I've come up with, I meant to actually share my screen, but I shared just one window. So let me share my whole screen now. So what I'm kind of showing today, let me share my entire screen here, is Nanobot. And so Nanobot is kind of what I said. It's the idea of, let's take an MCP server and turn it into an agent. None of that is kind of going to really make sense. It's like too high level. Like, what does this really mean? So let me walk you through the process of basically how do we get from like an MCP server to this example I have down here, where this is a full Blackjack game powered by AI and MCP UI. I can click this button here. I can what should I do next? Basically, how do I want to walk through with Nanobot basically how, like, what this is, like how you build this, how this technology breaks down. But Nanobot is really much more about kind of just doing like chatbot like this. This is really, how do we move forward with taking this thing, which is really an agent, and kind of integrating it into kind of everything else going forward. Like, what is an agent? So let me just kind of start with the building blocks here. So what I've done is I first developed this Blackjack MCP server. So you can find the source for this. It's in Nanobot Blackjack. Actually, if you go to Nanobot, the GitHub repo, or from the web page, click. What I'm going to be showing is this Blackjack game. So this is what I just demoed on the website. It was just embedded in the website. But you can see here, there's also the MCP server and the source. And so what that chatbot that I have there, what it's composed of is this MCP server, which is just MCP. It's written in TypeScript. And then this little bit of configuration. Let me pull this up, which is like this is some of the, just the name, the description, some icons to make it a little prettier, some instructions, some starter messages, and then the MCP server.
Can you boost that text a little bit, Darren? It's hard to see.
Yeah. So, right. Okay. So let me show you, let me break this down. So I have this MCP server. So if I was to connect to this from the inspector, trying to find the URL to the inspector. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So if I connect to this, this is what I got. I have these things. So I can now, I can, if I just talk directly, this is no AI. This is just purely programming. This is a Blackjack game engine. So this is going to enforce the rules of Blackjack. So I can go here and say, let me start a new game. So that starts a new game. And then I can say like hit, and this somewhere, I don't know what the result of this is. So did I win, lose? I don't know. But anyway, so this is a game engine. Okay. So this is kind of like the current state of chatbots. Is I can take this MCP server and I can now put it into Claude. I've already like wired this up where it's here. Okay. So I can say, okay, let's play a game of Blackjack. So this is calling that tool. And so like now I can start playing it again. Okay, so I can go here and say, okay, hit, and it's going to go, allow. So with this, there's a couple things. So it's like, one, the experience is like, okay, I can play a Blackjack game through an MCP. Like, but is this really fun? Am I really going to do this? Is it the best experience? Not really. The other thing is, I can kind of get AI to lie a little bit. Just says could not attach to the server. I don't know why, but I can basically kind of convince AI and say like, no, I actually have Blackjack right now, right? Right. See? Well, no. Did I have? I didn't. Oh, I did actually have Blackjack. No, your final hand. Oh yeah. Never mind. I had it. Just kidding. I have 2 aces. Let's see what it'll do. Well, if I convince it enough, I can get it to lie or whatever. But the point is like this is like just not like kind of like the greatest of kind of experiences. So now what we can do is we can bring in MCP UI. So if you guys haven't seen MCP UI before, MCP UI is if I go here to Shopify, like MCP UI, it kind of came from the Shopify guys, but it's its own standard now where I can say like, let me see, what products do you offer? Okay. Okay, so this is now where we can get into like more rich chat experiences because we can bring in UI. So I can click here and say, okay, I'm going to buy this. I want to add it to my cart. That's cool. I want to check out. Okay. So now basically with, adding the UI elements, we can start making this experience like even better. So this right now, I'm just kind of trying to show you like the basic building blocks here. It's like I have an MCP server. And then I'm bringing in basically MCP UI. So if I go back to now this Blackjack game that I was playing before, I'll kind of break this down for you. So when I say, let's play a game here, this is returning back with the tool call and then actually a UI resource. Okay. So this UI resource, now it renders this whole game. And I have one little trick here for that's specific to Nanobot where it will show it will show the UI here right in the center. Like it renders it nicely, as opposed to like the last demo I was showing with the shopping one. It put the UI, in line. So let me go back to the Blackjack. Okay, so now what I can do is, so I can now click on the UI, and when I said hit, it actually fires back to the AI. Actually does a hit. So now it's 18. Because I have 18. So I can say like, okay, now hit. I lost the money. But so the cool thing now is if I was to talk to AI at this point and say like, oh no, I actually have $1,000. Okay, so it said, yeah, your balance sheet is now $1,000 moving forward. That's great, right? But you can see here, no, I actually have this, right? So what happens here is like by basically having like another way to validate and show the information is, even if I can convince AI to like lie or whatever, it doesn't really matter because it's not changing the actual state of the world. So this kind of basic approach here of like, basically I have AI that's interacting with data. I have a way to visualize data. I can interact with the data. This now opens up like a very rich experience where it's like, now I have this very cool interactive experience where it's like, I can interact with agents. And so you can imagine where I can start going with this, where it's like, well, what if I had like more UI elements and they're more on the screen and I can interact with those. And so I, as a human, am interacting with the UI things, talking to AI. This all pulls together like this amazing kind of agentic experience and everything. Okay. So just to show you, so this is kind of like the end result of like Nanobot, of kind of like what you can do with it is you can build this really kind of cool chatbot. But again, going back to this, like kind of how do you actually stitch this together? Nanobot is just a Nanobot.ai tab. Nanobot is just a simple CLI. It's just a simple program. You can just run this. I already have it installed, so I don't actually need to. But you can just basically. Can
you make the screen a little bigger, Darren?
Oh, sorry, yeah. So I can just basically install that. So in order for I can install that binary. So now I have Nanobot. Okay. And then this example here that we were running, okay, Nanobot examples, okay, is this Blackjack one. So now that I have this, I can say Nanobot, and I'll show you again. This is the YAML that's kind of behind this thing. That's an icon embedded, so it's gigantic. But again, it's really just a prompt, some starter messages, the MCP server I wrote. Okay, and you can bring in more MCP servers. But so once you have that, all you have to do is say, okay, Nanobot run Blackjack. Okay, so I run this. You need to have an OpenAPI key. Right now, I just support these two things, Anthropic and OpenAI. So as long as you set an API key, you'll be able to use the models. But so once I have that config, I wrote the MCP server. I now get this thing. So the idea is going back to this is like, well, MCP is all I need. So it's like, well, what have I really done here? Really, I wrote this MCP server and then a little bit of config, and now I have this full rich experience, right? So you can start seeing like, oh, I can build these really cool interactive agents that are doing all this interesting things. And like, there's so many cool things that like how we're pushing this forward of this, of like, when you think about this chat over here, it's like, well, what if I actually hid the chat? I didn't even, like when I click this button here, like double, it's firing an event to the chat, which then calls a tool, which then updates the UI. It's like, well, what if I even hid the chat? And like, it's just monitoring what's going on. And like, I'm clicking around and it's changing things where it's like, so now AI is completely driving this application or UI, right? So it's like, there's so many cool things we can do. But so again, like what I was talking about is like, so it's like, cool, like we've built this really interesting chatbot. When I got into AI, I first started, I was like, oh, I hate chatbots. I don't like chatbots. I just want to do like back-end agentic stuff. And the more and more I got into chatbots, I realized like, this is actually the answer for agents. It's like, when you take an MCP server and you combine it with a model, that effectively is an agent. And we know they're very, very useful because we have ChatGPT, we have Claude, we have coding agents. All of those things are basically a model plus a bunch of tools and some user interface. And they're ridiculously useful, right? And we've proven that. So like what we're looking at here is like, this is an agent. And it's the best example of an agent we have too. But the problem is like, well, I have this agent and, you know, like everything can't just be a human interacting with it. So this is where it gets super fun. This is where I get super excited about Nanobot and where it gets like super technical and maybe a little crazy. But it's, I think, where we're kind of going with this, or where I'm trying to go with this, is this whole Nanobot that I've shown you here is like the agent, the combination of this configuration. See, here, I'll do this. Let me launch this again. So just because I'm trying to, like, we're going to get into inception here. So I just don't want to get too confusing. So I have an MCP server that's the Blackjack MCP, which is the game engine. Plus I have the prompts and the model. This all combines into this UI that I hear that's running on port 8080, okay, localhost. But now if I take this and I go into my inspector, where'd my inspector go? Sorry, I have too many windows open. Here's my inspector, and I put this in here, MCP. Okay, let me reconnect, clear, boom. Clear that, okay. I am now talking to that agent. So if you were to take this Blackjack agent, maybe I wanted it to be able to search the web or show latest news or have more personality. Maybe there's a side game you could play, or you could order drinks through it. I don't know, whatever. You could build up that agent and start doing a bunch of cool things and have all these MCP servers and stuff, but like that's a very specific configuration. So if somebody was wanting to copy that and do the same thing in Claude or ChatGPT, they wouldn't, or it'd be extremely difficult. So instead, what I've done is I've taken that whole configuration and I've put it into, now it's an agent. And so I now have an endpoint that's called chat. So I can say, okay, start a game of Blackjack. Okay. So I am now talking to that agent that I built, the whole UI and everything, through an MCP interface. There's a slight bug here that I was trying to fix right before. Like it's supposed to show the MCP UI resources here. I broke that. But imagine it showed the MCP UI resources right here. But so as I'm talking to this agent, this is now, MCP is a stateful protocol by default, which I love because now I can have a stateful conversation with this agent, because now the next one I can say, okay, first it started this game. I can say hit, and now it's going to hit on that previous game. It's keeping the state going on. Okay, so what's let's see, right? Take a card, blah blah blah. Right. So this played the next thing. Okay. So what I've done is like this is pretty darn like in my mind. This is like kind of the easiest thing of like if I write an MCP server, I can just add this config file and get this cool rich chat interface. It's like brain dead simple. Now it's wrapped into an agent. And now it's exposed through like a standard API. And I'm trying to make this into a standard of like, I've had some discussions, a little bit of discussions with other people, but this interface, if I go here, there's also these resources where I can see like, well, here's the whole chat history and here's the current progress. There's a technical reason why these are different, but this is like, so I can go in here and this is kind of a low level of everything that's been going on. And so this entire UI here that you're seeing is actually just calling that MCP interface. So I'm rendering this rich UI interface off of just calling this one chat tool, right? But this chat tool, if I take this, let's try this, whatever. So we're going to go to the public one. I can go back to Claude. Settings, extensions, advanced settings. Nope, developer, this one. Let me edit this, and I'm going to change this here. And I'm going to change it. Instead of talking to that underlying MCP server, again, this is kind of confusing because they're both called Blackjack, but the Blackjack one, this is the actual agent. This is the game engine. So I'm going to change this, and I'm going to talk to now the agent. So this agent here now, let me save that. And I'm pretty sure, Claude, you have to restart. Not 100% sure. Might not be needed, but I'm just going to do it so my demo doesn't screw up. Okay, so then hopefully now if I go Blackjack, it has just the chat method now. So now I can say, let's start a game of Blackjack. Okay, so now what it's doing is instead of it calling that tool, the Blackjack engine directly, it's now calling the agent. So it calls the Blackjack agent, and now the agent is going and doing its thing in the background, and then it replies back with the answer. And again, this is the bug. It should actually respond back with the MCP UI resources, which Claude doesn't support, but it would show it in here. But so you see, it's like I've taken simple MCP server, bundled it with the model, packaged that again inside of MCP, and now it's consumable again by MC3 through other chatbots. So it's like this to me, like this pattern that I've created, this is what I think an MCP agent is. Everyone has a different idea, but this is what I've been able to prove out, and it's worked incredibly well. So you take this basic like agent interface, combine it with async tool calling, which is like just about soon going to land in the spec, I believe. I'm hopefully working with the so you can start seeing like we're defining what agents are, and so now I can start stitching these together. And what ends up happening really cool is like today, if I chat session like this in Claude, if I add 1,000 tools, it blows up. Like there's too many tools, there's too much context. There's the tools might have overlapping parameters, they might have similar tools, AI gets confused. But if I did the same thing, but I added 1,000 agents, they all have the same interface. So I don't need 1,000 tools. I really just need still one tool and knowing which agent you're talking to. So then the communication becomes much more standardized in that like, oh, I can now actually more effectively do agent-to-agent communication. Where you can start imagining like, oh, I have my own like personal AI assistant like Claude, but now it can interact with another AI assistant to do whatever. And so, this is this whole model of agent to agent. So it's like, so with Nanobot, like what I'm like, one, it's just a really simple way to take MCP servers and like basically turn it into a UI and get a chatbot. It's probably the most like within the next 2 weeks, it should be 100% MCP compliant, like 100% implement the MCP spec and the MCP UI spec, which will be the only implementation of that. So that's interesting in and of itself. But that's like 1/10 of the story to me is like, it's really this, how do I define agents so I can continue to like compose and build up this world of agents? Like, what is it going to, like, what is an agent? Anyway, so Nanobot is really just my exploration into building MCP agents and what an agent really is, or, at least one idea. And so I'm really excited to put this out there and just see what people think. Yeah, I've really kind of poured my heart and soul into this thing. So let me stop my sharing there. Yeah,
Darren, I have a couple questions and things I'd love to get your thoughts on. So first of all, okay, Nanobot is open source software.
Oh yeah.
This is open source. I download this as an executable, and I can run nanobots locally on my machine, or I can embed nanobots into my website like you have with your website there. You showed an example there of the Blackjack Nanobot, and that Blackjack Nanobot had was being run on your service, so you're hosting that out to the cloud. Then you were connecting to it from multiple points, right? You had at one point you were connecting to it from Claude, another point you're connecting to it on the UI, another time you're connecting to it from a different location. Are you maintaining state and identity across that? So like, let's just say my mind jumps to I don't know, let's just say I'm McDonald's, right? And I want to connect to my users, and I just want to have them like chat with me, right? It's like, just what do you need from McDonald's? And I have like an Uber McDonald's agent that I can talk to and say, hey, I'm going to drive over to the McDonald's near my house. I want a Big Mac and a Big Mac meal ready for me.
Yeah.
I could also go into the app and chat with it there. I could talk to it maybe through Siri. I could talk to it through Claude. I could, like, is the theory that these agents are going to be multimodal, be able to sort of work with me across whether I'm, as long as I identify myself in some way, right? I'm authenticated as a user. I'll be able to talk to this nanobot agent, whether I'm on the McDonald's website or I'm talking to it through Claude or Siri, or I'm talking to it through anything. Is that what you're getting to?
Yeah. So so if you show my screen right now, so let me talk a little bit like the technical details. So this is a nanobot is what's called an MCP host, which is not a term most people know. It's kind of confusing because most people just think of server and client. But in order to create like the full agent experience, you need like a client, you need an orchestrator, you need connection to an LLM database, resources, user. So this is what you're talking about, the idea of users and threads and session management and context and all this stuff. Is so Nanobot at its heart is like, it has the idea of who the user is, what's the agent you're talking to, what's the thread, like the current context. And then part of it, one aspect is the user interface. And so what I've shown right now is largely the web interface, which is the MCP UI based web interface. But that interface, like that's just one interface where, again, that's why I have this standard API behind the hood where it's like, you should be able to do email, SMS, chat, voice, Slack, AR, VR, whatever the because with the protocol of MCP and the idea that there's like resources and stuff that have MIME types, it can adapt to the capabilities of the client. Of like, if I was just doing pure text, it just shows text. Kind of like what I already showed with this, it's like I'm doing a pure text game. I'm not getting the UI aspects. But if this client could show UI, it would show a better, like more richer experience, right? So the idea is I just started with the web thing, but very quickly working on the other kind of front end things. And so it starts getting to the point where, because people think of a chatbot as like, oh, it's this thing on this website. But it's like, no, think of it more of like the thread is like a specific context floating somewhere out there in the world. And if I can plug into it in different ways, I can talk to that and interact with it and kind of do whatever stuff I want. So you could have your own, it's like I would build a McDonald's agent and they would have an idea of like, oh, the end user, and like if let's say you were talking to it through a phone, that phone has GPS on it, the location of that person, you can send kind of like that context information to the chat of like knowing like, oh, this person wants a burger and they're standing, in this McDonald's, so that's the
very cool. So